Hi, and welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. Well, it's coming up on 1 year since I received my Nikon Z8. I'm recording this on Mother's Day, May 12th, 2024, and I received my camera on May 26th of 23. And so I just want to give you a report on 1 year with the Nikon Z8. Now, I've done several videos on the Z8 since I purchased it, and so I'm not going to get into all those details of the individual features that I spoke about, but I'm just going to touch on a few things. And let me just say I have had no issues with the camera. There was those initial 2 recalls. First was for the lens mount, and secondly it was for the strap lugs. I sent it back to Nikon. It was returned to me quickly. I have had 0 issues with this camera. And as of today, I have shot over 39,000 pictures with the Z8. And like I said, no problems. Are there some things that I think could be improved or some things I don't like? Well, really the only thing is the battery. Battery's great, usually fine, but it does run down a lot quicker than the battery, let's say, in my D810. I could shoot that D810 all day long, reviewing pictures, looking at the LCD, and it's rare that I need to swap out the battery. With the Z8, not so much. I mean, the battery does not last as long. However, it really depends, of course, on how much you're using that LCD, how much you're reviewing those images. And if you're shooting burst, if you're shooting sports and using a high frame rate, then you could get several thousand pictures. Now, in February of 2024, Nikon released firmware 2.0 for the camera, and it was a major firmware upgrade, added a ton of features. I did a video on that back in March, I guess, going through those changes, or at least most of those changes that I really think improved the camera a good bit. Although I was fine with the camera before that, it made it even better. Now, I've seen that some people have said that they have an issue with overheating. And I guess it depends on the memory card you're using. I just shot a job outdoors on a 90-degree day, all day long in the sun. The camera was basically in the sun for 7 hours. And I was using a Delican Devices black CF Express card Type B, and I had no issues with the camera overheating. I never got an overheating warning. The camera itself felt warm, hot even. I was hot, but no issues with overheating. And I've shot video with the camera as well. Never had an issue with overheating, at least not with these cards. It's the only cards I've used. I have two of these Delican black cards. Never have had an issue. The autofocus, as I've said in many of my videos, is excellent. The improvement they made with firmware 2.0 for dedicated bird focus. Now, unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to try that. I tried to. I went down to the Edmund Forsyth Wildlife Refuge, hoping to photograph some birds in flight, but it just wasn't happening that day. It wasn't the best weather, and I don't know, I don't blame the birds. I guess they all stayed in their nests. But I did, when I first got the camera, I did go down there to the Wildlife Refuge, and the camera performed great. And of course, that was before firmware 2.0. I just had it set for animal focus, and it zeroed in on the bird's head and then the eye as it got closer. And I got some shots where the birds are flying right towards me, where an osprey is just coming right towards me, carrying a fish. And I just shot at, I think I was shooting on that day at 20 frames a second, and it worked out great. Now that event I was talking about, where I was in 90-degree heat for a good part of the day, that was an event for the American Heart Association that I photograph every year. In previous years, I've used the Nikon D500, before that the 810, maybe before that the 7100. And the whole idea is for me to capture the ball coming off the bat. Let me explain a little better. It's an event to raise money. Companies, individuals get 20 swings and try to hit a ball out of the park. It's pitched by a pitching machine, about 45 miles an hour. And in the past, what I tried to do is just anticipate them swinging, and of course you want to get a shot of them making contact with the ball. They pay to do this, so pictures are given to them a little bit after the event, and it's nice to get a shot of the ball coming off the bat, or the bat making contact with the ball. And again, in the past, I would just kind of anticipate that. With the D500, I'd have it set to continuous autofocus at 10 frames a second, and I would try to capture it. And I would have to take a lot of pictures in order to do that. Also, they didn't always make contact with the ball. A lot of people just swung and missed. So those pictures are not what they want. So what I did this year, and that was at the end of April of 2024, I had the camera set for pre-release capture. And can only shoot JPEG in that. So that's a change I'd like to see them make. I'd like to be able to shoot RAW in that. But I had the camera set for 30 frames a second. So I had it set for pre-release capture, which was a new feature that was added in February with firmware 2.0. So I had it set to buffer a half a second of images. Let me explain a little better. If you put light pressure on the shutter release, it will start to buffer images. Once you press the shutter release fully, it will go back and store either 1 second's worth, a half a second's worth, or a quarter second's worth of images before you fully press the shutter release fully. That works great for birds. For example, if you're trying to get a shot of a bird, it's on a perch and you're waiting for it to take off, right? So without this pre-release capture, you're trying to anticipate that bird taking off, and a lot of times, by the time you press the shutter release, the bird is long gone. With this pre-release capture, the bird takes off, you fully depress the shutter release, and now it goes back either a second, a half second, or a quarter second, and stores those images. So that's what I was doing with the batters. I had it set just to go back a half a second, and old habits die hard. I kept trying to anticipate the ball striking the bat, but all I had to do was fully press the shutter release once the bat made contact with the ball. And eventually I got the hang of it, and it worked out really good. Although I have to say, I shot thousands of pictures. It's a 2-day event that first day. I did a little better the second day, but it was a lot of images to go through, but it worked out great. And anyone who made contact with the ball, I got several pictures of them actually hitting the ball coming off the bat. Pixel shift. I've not tried it. That was a new thing added in firmware 2.0. It's for stationary subjects, landscape photography. I haven't tried it. I read some things on it. I don't think it's that big a deal, but I should get around to trying it, I suppose. Also, I just have some notes here there's so many things I want to say about this camera. Price has recently been reduced to $3,500. I'm not sure if that's a temporary thing. I think it went down to $3,700, and then this may be an additional sale through Nikon, and it's now down to $3,500. I paid $4,000. I think $3,500 for this camera is a great price. High ISO. I recently did a video where I tested the Z8 against my son's D700. The D700 came out in 2008, but it's known for excellent high ISO. And I have been shooting my Z8 at high ISO, 6400, 12,800. And this recent video I did testing both of these cameras just confirmed what I already knew, that the Z8 is great at high ISO. I would say the Z6 might be slightly better, maybe a stop better possibly, but at 12,800 I am really impressed with the images coming out of the Z8. Now, one other thing concerning the battery. Now, the D850, a DSLR, uses the same battery as the Z8, and you get many more images per battery charge, like the D810. But also the D850 will take a battery grip that will use the same battery as the D4, D5, and D6, which is a very high capacity battery. Now, the Z8 will take a grip, and that battery grip will take an additional battery, but it's the smaller battery. It's the standard battery for the Z8. So I think it would be nice if the grip would be able to use the higher capacity battery for the D4, 5, and 6, but it doesn't. So it's not a big deal. I don't have the grip. It's so quick and easy to change batteries, and they're so small. Just keep an extra battery in your pocket. It's really not that much of a problem. Another thing on the Z8 I just want to mention, I'm just trying to think of some of the really things that are really important to me that I really like, is the location of the playback button. All the Nikon digital cameras I've had up until the Z8 had the playback button on the upper left. The Z8 has it on the lower right. And when I first got the camera, I kept trying to go to the upper left for the playback button. And I didn't like it because I was so used to the previous location. However, after a short while, I realized how much better it is to have that playback button on the lower right. You're holding your camera, you're taking shots, you want to look at the image, you want to play it back. All you do is take your thumb from near the one of the command dials, and you can just bring it down here and press the playback button. Much quicker than having to remove your hand from under the lens and press the playback button on the upper left. So I hope all future Nikon mirrorless cameras will place that playback button on the lower right. Another thing that I really love is I like to use some old manual focus lenses. Nikon, Minolta, Canon, Pentax, a bunch of them. I have adapters for the various different lenses. And one of the nice things with the mirrorless cameras is that you could zoom in to focus. You also have focus peaking, which is an improvement on the Z8 over the previous cameras. It's more accurate, I believe. But with manual focus, I have it set so that when I press the OK button, it zooms in 100%, and you could easily focus. And then you would have to press the OK button again to go back to the full view. Well, with the Z8, same thing, you press the button, got 100% view, but then all you do is put light pressure on the shutter release, and it goes back to the full view. For me, who uses a lot of manual focus lenses, that was a big improvement. So as you can tell, I am very pleased with this camera. I've had a D810 for years, and I love the D810. But there's no question that this is a far superior camera in many ways. Again, the only thing that's not as good is the battery life. But this camera is, without a doubt, after a year, now let's give it some time. Let's see in 2, 3, 4 years how well it holds up. But right now, I'm confident in saying this is the best camera I have ever owned. Image quality, the ability to customize. It's just, I still don't know everything about this camera. So I am very pleased. I am anxious to try out that pre-release capture on birds. I think it would work out great. Summing this up, it's a great camera. I enjoy shooting with it. I still use my D810 from time to time, but I enjoy this camera much more. So if you have a Z8, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think, how it's been holding up for you, if you've had any issues with it. And you could leave your comments in the comments below or drop me an email. And I try to respond to all questions and all comments. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I usually come out with a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.